Zeke Yeager is the best character introduced into Attack on Titan ever since the time skip. It's absolutely astounding to this day how the Yeager brothers were able to take the story of Attack on Titan by the scruff of the neck in such a short period of time. This video will break down everything there is about Zeke Yeager. Let's get right into the video, gents. Now, Eren, who was previously the main character in my opinion, just by name and power, finally took his own path and took the story into his own hands. He has changed the course of the story and the world using the palm of his hands. But today we aren't talking about Chadere. This video is about Zeke Yeager, the Broken Titan. I'm going to fragment this video into 3 parts. Firstly, the history of Zeke Yeager. Second, the basis of his ideology. Thirdly, finally, a discussion on whether his solution is a good one. How viable is it? How feasible is it? And is it right or wrong? Calling Zeke Yeager the Broken Tiger, the Broken Titan, is somewhat ironic because he's actually the best beast titan that Marley has ever had, thanks to his inherited royal blood. His lineage is so powerful that he even has abilities that mimic the founding titan. He has the ability to make and control titans from his own spinal fluid. A truly superb military weapon that is able to demolish ordinary nations. He may be the most perfect and complete titan technically, but his past has broken Zeke to the core. Zeke is of course the son of Grisha and Dinah Yeager. He was groomed from a young age to become a warrior, taught to reject the Marleyan propaganda and act as a double agent for the Eldian Empire. This role was too much of a burden for all involved, as Zeke didn't get the love he needed from his parents, nor did Grisha have any space in his heart for his son, as all his efforts were being poured into the mission. This created a rift between the family. Unbeknownst to Grisha and Dinah, Zeke was growing closer to his grandparents and Mr. Xavier. His grandparents were part of the majority of the Eldians who didn't want to revolt. They would have preferred to just remain in peace inside the internment zone and not cause any trouble. Unfortunately, this rift eventually led to Zeke exposing his parents to ultimately save himself and his grandparents. In his eyes, he was simply reporting the people who never loved him in the first place. People who only saw him as a tool, just like Marley. Now, gents, as someone who read the manga, it personally took me a couple of rereads before I had a complete grasp on Zeke Yeager's ideology. I was confused why he would assist Eren after killing so many scouts during the 2nd and 3rd season of Attack on Titan. Especially after the entire debacle in Pards, his mindset became clear as day. But before we get there, let's consider his actions and motivations that encompass his ideology. Since his introduction, I always found Zeke to be extremely interesting. Isayama has a profound ability to use mystery to his advantage, while at the same time keeping the audience engaged with what's happening in front of them. Season 2 was the best example of this, as we were extremely intrigued to find out who and how the Beast Titan was operating. But Isayama then masterfully redirects our attention to possibly one of the biggest anime betrayals of all time. The reveal that Reiner and Berthold are both the armored and colossal titans, respectively. Now, there are 2 moments where we get a glimpse of how Zeke truly feels before it's finally revealed to us that the Eldians that are there in Paradise Island aren't the only ones. Humanity lives and thrives outside. Firstly, when he crushes the rocks from anger, and secondly, when he says that he will save Eren. He crushes the rocks as he hates the king for taking away the Eldians' memories, saying they're wasting their lives in this futile fight. Secondly, he doesn't attack Eren after he was defeated by Levi. There are 2 things that we're able to capture from these 2 moments. 1, he loves his brother and sees him as suffering or a fellow victim of Grisha Yeager. Secondly, we see his hatred for Eldians and their situation. Even when we were all ignorant to why Bertolt and Reyna betrayed the scouts, I personally never hated them. You could see the pain in their faces. They truly didn't want to do what they were doing. As mentioned by Eren, there are many people who are pushed to do things out of the circumstances they're in. Those two children, Reyna and Bertolt, are a perfect example of that. Zeke Yeager is surprisingly one of the few who push themselves into hell. And perhaps it's another hell, but maybe it's hope. Zeke's solutions revealed to us finally in Season 4 is to cause the extinction of Eldians by making their reproductive organs stop working. He believes that Eldians should never have been brought into this world in the first place. To suffer in such a world that hates them is horrible. The only solution is to never to be born into this world in the first place. So, by attaining the power of the founder by working with Eren is the only way for Zeke to achieve his goal. He develops their goal alongside his mentor and previous holder of the Beast Titan, Dr. Xavier. They both shared stories of hard lives and came to one solution to save them all: euthanasia. Quite some suicidal vibes, if you ask me. Now that we've spoken about and reviewed Zeke's somewhat questionable method to save Eldia, let's consider the final part. How feasible and good is this solution to the problem? In my personal opinion, Zeke Yeager is definitely a little bit messed up in the head. While his motivations may seem noble, he's willing to end, with air quotes, the suffering of his fellow Eldians by any means necessary. He's got less than a year of his life left, and clearly his actions show that they're the actions of somebody who has absolutely nothing to lose. A reckless genius is an accurate description of who he is now. He genuinely doesn't care about anyone else other than his brother. He has no care for human life and will delete anyone who gets in his way. Now, anyone can argue that Eren has similar sentiments, but at the very least, Eren is fighting for his people and the island of paradise, his home. Zeke has no true allies and doesn't seem to want to protect a nation or any people in particular. It genuinely makes it difficult for me to get behind his side when he stands for nothing other than himself and his questionable ideas of him and Dr. Xavier. Now that I've said my opinion, let's consider it logically. Would Zeke's plan actually work? Absolutely. The only difficulty would come when the last generation of Eldians start to reach their elderly years. They'll begin to struggle to use the power of the Titan, and this will likely lead to a massacre of the Eldian race by the end of it all. Zeke doesn't really seem to care for such things. He's more so pushing for new Eldians to no longer to be born into this situation more than anything else. So the solution is still effective. But while this is true, I still think the best solution for the Attack on Titan debacle is genocide on either side. Eldians either get wiped out, or the entire world gets wiped out. What always bothered me about Reyna, Annie, and all the other warriors such as Pock and others is their lack of foresight. Let's say they do win the war, and they beat Paradise Island. They still have no future. As soon as the Titans become absolute from a military perspective, Eldians will no longer serve any purpose. Their eradication would be imminent, despite their efforts over the many years to help Mali progress into the superpower that it is. So all in all, I think the only ideology that makes the most sense is to either support the rumbling by Eren or to support the genocide of Eldians, as only these two options would result in the total end of the Eldians and human war. Now gents, if we're to conclude this final segment, Zeke is simply a boy who wanted the love of his father. His mindset is born from neglect and hatred. Hatred for himself, hatred for his people, hatred for his situation, and most importantly, the hatred for his father. Meeting his father one last time gave him true peace. Grisha told Zeke what he needed to hear all his life in those final moments. Zeke breaking down into tears alongside his father does nothing else but confirm this. Attack on Titan was without a doubt my favorite form of media entertainment that I had ever experienced. And to this day, I still have serious qualms with the ultimate ending of the series. I'm personally very interested to see how the rest of the anime-only community will feel about this ending, particularly the fate of the two Yeager brothers. I may make a video discussion on it once the ending comes out on all screens, but if you're a manga reader, know that I have similar sentiments to the other members on the Titan Folk subreddit, which I spent a whole lot of joyous years as we awaited the final conclusion of the series. Now, our rage is definitely quelled, but unfortunately leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Despite all of that, I can still appreciate the greatness of this series before the end. Nothing short of a masterpiece. So gents, tell me your thoughts down there in the comments. Let's keep it manga spoiler free for the anime onlys down there. So yeah, just keep it respectful, no spoilers. Let's just keep those lads into consideration, as the final part does come soon. So take it easy, gents. I'll be back with another anime or gaming video quite soon. Enjoy your day, gents.